So namaste everybody. So I didn't know the meaning of the word for many years. I belong to this place called Goa. I was born here. I don't like calling myself a Goan or an Indian because I always joke, show me the Indian in India. You find them very rarely. You find Maharashtrians, you find Goans, you find Punjabis, Tamilians, Telugus, Gujaratis. You've got to really look for an Indian with a microscope. Sometimes you meet them overseas, but they're also people of Indian origin. They are non-resident Indians. So what happened to the Indian? And more than that, what happened to the human being? The human being has got lost somewhere. Ashokji spoke about it in the morning that we learned to fly like birds and swim like fish, but we've forgotten to be human. We've forgotten humanity. And that's what Namaste teaches you. How many of you have grown up using the word Namaste? Let's have a show of hands. Very nice. Have you grown up using it like in day-to-day life? Let's just show hands. Okay. Brilliant. So you would know the meaning of the word Namaste. So whenever I ask people what is the meaning of the word Namaste, they tell me it is a greeting. And I'm like, who told you that? It's not a greeting. They tell me it's a welcome. And I'm like, you got it all wrong. Because every 5-star hotel or 4-star hotel you go to, you'll see the front office staff saying Namaste to you. And if I had the time, I stop and ask them, do you know the meaning? And they're like, no, it's a greeting. We thought it's a greeting. I'm like, no, it's not a greeting. So if you don't know the meaning, what is the purpose of saying it? It's superficial. Just like the modern education system. We study. We don't learn. We don't know what the true meaning or the purpose of that learning is. Our entire concept of studying or modern education is to get a degree, to get a career, to get a BMW car. We don't really go deep into the learning. And because we don't go deep into the learning, we don't know what that learning truly means. And because we don't truly know what that learning means, we don't know how to unleash our potential. And I say this loudly. So I always say I cannot teach anyone anything, so I'm going to provoke a thought process. So a lot of people tell me Namaste is a greeting, like I told you. It teaches you a whole lot of values, right? It teaches you respect. It teaches you humility. It teaches you vulnerability. It teaches you positivity. It teaches you connection. It teaches you how to have dignity for yourself. So it's a very loaded word. And when the forefathers, yes, our ancestors from India, this place which is now called India by political will after 1947, when our forefathers designed the entire salutation and the word, there was a very loaded, powerful teaching. And I believe that it encompasses all life and leadership learning, which is now being taught around the world. But we've forgotten it. So if you go to any place in the Far East, you'll see that people say Namaste in their language very nicely. But I really like the way the Thai people do it. And though the Thai people globalized 20 years before us, they've not forgotten good traditional values. They all say Savadika so gracefully. It compels you to say Savadika back to them. And every Thai national, whether it's the king of Thailand or the vendor on the street, says it to you whether you're a Thai national or a foreigner. And guess what? The Thai people borrowed that learning from this part of the world which is now called India. They practice it. We don't. We talk about traditions, we talk about traditional values, but for us, tradition is about bursting firecrackers. So after Supreme Court has put a ban on firecrackers, you have the whole community which is coming up in arms against the Supreme Court, saying, hey, you can't stop tradition. So what is it that compels us to follow bad tradition but not follow good tradition? And somewhere I think that is because we've gone wrong as a race. This culture which gave this word called Namaste, because we don't practice it, we've gone in the wrong direction. We focus on competence, but we don't focus on character. And that is the reason, because our learning becomes very superficial and because it is only studying, we're actually churning out monkeys in the L'Oreal salon. And the reason I use this metaphor is, I love monkeys. They say they are forefathers and ancestors. And I love L'Oreal. I've worked with the company in the past, and I think L'Oreal products are so effective. They can make me look good. And they can make the monkey look like Aishwarya Rai or Brad Pitt. But it's cosmetic change. It's not character change. So after the cosmetics die out, the monkey starts monkeying around again. Because the character has not been built into our education system. Would you all agree with me that we go to school and study, but we don't learn? If you don't agree with me, I will prove you wrong in the next 2 minutes. How many of you know the mission statement of India? I rest my case. We go to study, but not to learn. Because the entire concept of studying is, ratta maro, pass ho jao. Degree milegi to naukri milegi to chhokri milegi aur shadi hogi. And the focus also is more on the male child than on the girl child. Right? Now that's where our mindset comes in, because the modern education system is very structured and very straight-laced, where you don't allow people to think. We hate confusion and we love conclusion. We want to get some conclusion in our life. We don't really know who we are. Whenever I ask people who you are, they've never gone deep into that question. I start a lot of coaching sessions with who am I? And everybody thinks it's some exotic, esoteric question. It is not an exotic, esoteric question. Who am I is a study called ontology, the science of being, which our modern education system or B schools around the world don't teach you. So people have been reduced to who they are without understanding who they could become. And that's what Namaste teaches you. Here's the meaning of the word Namaste. The God in me respects the God in you. The divinity in me salutes the divinity in you. And the unlimited potential in me recognizes the unlimited potential in you. Because each and all of us in this room, 7 billion people in the world, are blessed with unlimited, extraordinary potential. But what do? We settle for ordinary, because that's what modern education does to you. It makes you ordinary. It doesn't help you, nor empower you, nor enable you to go for extraordinary. I started a movement called the Joy of Giving in 2002. I find no joy in the joy of giving anymore, because the joy of giving has been reduced to giving a little money or used clothes and saying that we've done our bit to change the world. And I say, hey, the whole concept was give a little of yourself. Do something to create a better earth, because you are a human being and that is your basic responsibility. And what is the responsibility of a human being? Most people don't know. So I said the basic responsibility of a human being is, how do I create a better earth than when I came into it? That is the responsibility. And am I fulfilling it? And mind you, it's nothing selfless. It's nothing altruistic. It's nothing so charitable, because your children and my children, they live in the same earth. So it is selfish. But if you're not fulfilling it, who is there to blame for the way the earth has regressed? So we all need to own our responsibility. Namaste teaches you that. The reason I speak about heroic potential is because my journey in life is to tell stories of heroes. And that's where I've created a learning program called Mojosh Inspirator. It's all about evolving mindful consciousness. And the whole journey started for me in 2002 when I was researching a community called the Musahar community. The Musahar community is so called because they live on the outskirts of eastern UP and Bihar. They live in abject poverty. They're called the untouchables within the untouchables. So in India, which gave the world the word called Namaste, where we believe that the God was in every human being, we now have untouchables within the untouchables. So we not only have a caste system which says Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, which even the Goan people follow, including Catholics. Then within the Shudras, we have more untouchables. So you have the highest untouchable. You have the higher untouchable. You have the middle class untouchable, the lower untouchable, and the lowest untouchable, and then the untouchable within the untouchable. What have we done to ourselves? This word called Namaste, which taught us respect, has been completely forgotten. We've forgotten to respect the God in the human being. And that's exactly the reason I tell the story of this man I met, this amazing man. Would you all believe that human beings can move mountains? Yes or no? I met a man who moved a mountain. So I was researching the Musahar community to get ready to start the Joy of Giving in 2002. And while walking around the villages of Gailor, I was wearing a black kurta, I remember. I wear a kurta when I go for field visits. And this 5 feet 2 inch man, you can imagine the contrast, was wearing a yellowish kurta, not by color, but yellowed by age, because he couldn't afford a better kurta, was pulling my kurta and trying to tell me something. And I was wondering, what is this man trying to tell me? He must have been around 70 years old at that time. And he pulled me, took me and some of my friends to his charpoy, lifted his pillow and showed me a hammer and a chisel. And with that hammer and chisel, he tried to tell me a story, and I couldn't understand his dialect because he was speaking in his Bihari dialect. We then found somebody who tried to explain to us. He said, sir, he's trying to show you those mountains, and in those mountains you'll see a big road, so that's the big gap. That is a road which was created by this man, sir. His name is Dashrath Manjhi. So this one man, 5 feet 2 inches, untouchable within the untouchable, cut a mountain with a hammer and a chisel And I'm proud to tell you that I have had the privilege of holding that hammer and chisel in my hands. And that makes me more proud than anything else. So I've had the privilege of meeting this man. And this man had all the values. So if you see the Mojo Inspirator learning, it has 3 mindsets: Mojo, Josh, and Inspirator. Mojo is about how do I embrace a productive, progressive, proactive mindset. Josh is about how do I constantly and continuously develop that mindset and push my potential. And Inspirator is how do I help others to develop that potential. Because what the learning programs have shown is that the more you teach others, the more you learn. Your learning can go up to 95%. But human beings have now stopped sharing knowledge because we become so selfish that we don't want the other person to know as much as us, and we want to make people dependent on us. But when you teach people what you learn and you share knowledge with people, you learn more. So that is the man who I met who inspired me to start telling stories of real heroes. His name is Dashrath Manjhi, like I told you, untouchable within the untouchables. And I remember I was speaking in a forum in Bangalore around a year ago, and I was talking about Manjhi and about how I don't believe in this caste system, and I think that every human has the same potential, because whether it's a Brahmin or a Dalit, and I was telling the story, and one young man who was 27 years old, I won't name him, working with Intel, IIM and IIT educated, got up and started shouting. And I was like amazed and I was appalled because this man was shouting at me and saying, how dare you say that Brahmins and Dalits have the same potential? And I knew about him because I had the participant list, so I knew what he represents. And his other colleagues from Intel were also surprised and amazed. And I told him, sir, you're absolutely right. How dare I say that Brahmins and Dalits have the same potential? I believe you're a Brahmin, you surely don't have the potential of Manjhi. And that, my friends, is the fact. Namaste teaches us that we must respect the God in every human being, because the God is not in any temple or any church or any gurudwara or any mosque or any ashram. The God is in you and me, and we must respect each other. But the folly of the world is we don't respect human beings anymore. We respect stature. So we'll go and take a selfie with Vijay Mallya and feel proud of it. But we won't go and take a selfie with the janitor who keeps our roads and our cities clean. Therein lies the folly of all of us, especially of people in India, because if we had followed our good teachings, I think we would have been a better race, a different race. And that's our endeavor. We're going into schools. We're starting something called the International Volunteering Olympiad, where we want to unleash heroic potential in all students. Because like Fred Douglass truly said, it is better to create robust children, because it's very difficult repairing broken men. Thank you.